Welcome to the Spiritual Principles Made Practical podcast. Today, we're very lucky to have Chris Johnson. He's the CEO of Nation's Finest, which is a veteran service organization, and he has a long history of successfully running nonprofits that create benefit not only here, but in some cases around the world. So welcome, Chris. It's great to have you.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. Looking forward to it. Love talking to you.
So I know that you always said that you've been the poster child for what you want to be when you grow up. And why is it that you've chosen a service-oriented career as opposed to, I know that you had a successful advertising company, you've been a professional cartoonist, you've got a range of talents and a range of opportunities of things that you could have done, and yet you seem to have predominantly chosen service organizations. And what's behind all that?
Well, I think it's, if you look at the basic why I do what I do, it's what's going to maximize use of my talent, skills, experience, and what's going to keep me excited and keep me engaged. And as you well know, as most people will know, the need for social services, the need for health support, the need for, like I'm doing right now, homeless support for veterans and housing and mental health and those types of care are critical. And I just seem to be drawn to them because they take full advantage of what historically have proven to be pretty decent skills. I get told a lot that people feel comfortable talking with me, and when you have a skill to sit down with people and talk to them about reality and what's going on in the world and how they can best help, that seems to fit in a world where people need the most in resources and caring, and that's nonprofit world.
Well, that's for sure. Now, one of the things that I've noticed about you over the years is that with all of your talents, you're always interested in learning more and growing, and never taking the attitude that even though, quite honestly, you're head and shoulders above most people in terms of your talent, your effectiveness, your productivity, that you're
I'll pay you later, Scott.
What's that?
I'll pay you later for that.
Well,
compliment.
no, seriously, I mean, how many people do you know that have been hired and sought after as the CEO as much as you have?
Well, that's true. I appreciate that.
So
I haven't got my call from GM or one of the multi-billion-dollar organizations yet, but I haven't applied there yet either. So who knows?
yeah, exactly. That was the salient point. You haven't applied there, but I mean, there's the facts are is that in order to take full use of our talents, we have to take ownership of them. And I asked a rabbi one time, what's the dividing line between being arrogant and accepting and taking responsibility for your talents? And he gave me what I thought was the most brilliant answer possible. He said, evaluate it on the basis of what helps people. And if accepting your talents and abilities allows you to use them more effectively to help people, then by all means you should do that. If doing it results in you being arrogant and separating from people and feeling that you're better than other people, then that's not good. And that's never, you've always used your talents to help people, and you've never used it as an excuse to feel that you're better than other people. So I wanted to put that in there and caps and draw a line under it, you know?
Well, it is an interesting dynamic, Scott, because I've been told by others that I'm too self-deprecating, and yet at the same time, I've also been a big believer in one of the most important things that I'm here for is to build up others. And so as a leader, I spend a whole lot of time delegating responsibilities, giving good, clear instruction on how to move forward, and then allowing them to do things, even if I'm sneaking in and helping and getting things to move forward and applying my talents to make sure they're successful. at the end of it, all I do is shower praise on them and let the world know how great they did, because as they grow in their skill set and confidence, guess who looks good also? Me. And so I think, as you alluded to, if I had to bless, whether it's faith-based bless or look to my parents or to whoever for doing it, they're telling me that, you've got to work hard. You're not there yet. You need to keep striving, or whatever it is that makes me not sit there and think I'm as good as some people say I am. I think that's probably a trait I don't want to lose, because I don't want to walk into a room and say, you guys are weaker than me. I want to walk in a room and go, okay, what can I learn today? And geez, I hope they like me. That's been how I've always been.
And clearly it's working. And the truth is that pretty much no matter how great we are, we all have room for growth. So there isn't for all intents and purposes anyway, a ceiling on the growth we have, regardless of how far we've come. So
Well, and I'm always, as you alluded to, and thank you, I'm always reading. I'm always constantly, looking to mentors to try to find out what I could do better and how I could do things better. I even listen to this guy, God, what's his name? Scott Friedman, once in a while to figure out what I could do next. And I'm also a big believer in, sometimes there isn't a new way of doing something. There might just be a different or a better way of doing something. Well, and the only way you're going to be able to challenge that is to constantly keep your mind open and constantly keep looking around.
Yeah, and I mean, and one of the proofs of the pudding is that, because I've seen you in your work environment at times, is that your staff is really comfortable and trusting and on board with you, and that is sort of a reflection of your openness and humility in the respect of being willing to learn and grow.
Well, and I think an interesting point with that, you do read a lot about leadership, and some books you read about leadership talk about making sure that they understand what command and control is. And then my style has always been, you get more out of consensus, and you get more out of sharing the victories than you do out of command and control. And I've always enjoyed is probably the wrong word, but when somebody comes and says, "Hey, Chris, I think you're overthinking it," from my staff, or "Hey, Chris, I've got an idea that might be a little better. I think yours is a little old school." I just get a smile. And if it's an opportunity for me to explain why I'm thinking the way I'm thinking and try to educate them maybe and make them feel, oh, yeah, no, okay, now I get it. Or for me to simply say, you're right. What idea do you have? And how can we best take advantage of that and move forward? Because that's the other thing I'm a big believer in. Yes, come to me with problems. I want to know, rather than find out at the last minute you haven't solved it. I'd rather have you come to me and explain your problem, and I don't mind working it through with you. But my ideal situation is not bring me a problem and bring me some ideas in how you would solve that problem.
So one of the things that I've noticed about you is that, and experienced myself, is that high quality people want to associate with you. I mean, it's interesting to me how quickly the doors of uh, wealthy philanthropists and uh, government officials have opened their doors and wanted to build a relationship with you. And I'm curious as to how you view why that is, and how that's come to pass.
I would think, and I've actually given a lot of thought to that, Scott, and I don't have the clear answer, but I think part of it is I am who I am all the time. That does not mean that I don't adapt to my surroundings. If I'm in a professional business setting or sitting in a meeting with the governor, you have to communicate in a different style than you would in a locker room, right? So I am adaptable to my environment, but I also know I don't have a a false front that gets put up. And so I think people actually do appreciate that you are who you are, you're respectful of who they are, and you talk to them in a style so they'll listen as opposed to in your style and trying to get them to listen, if that makes sense. And it's funny, even as a youngster, I can't remember if I told you the story, but I applied when I was 19 to be the marketing director of Adidas. And uh, most people hear that and laugh hysterically because I had no experience. I had no right wanting to be. Well, I ended up going through the resume process and ended up getting an interview with a gentleman. And at the end, I did get told that, hey, this job is probably not an ideal fit for you, but we really appreciate your enthusiasm and everything else. And I left and grabbed the business card, and the business card was from some guy named Adi Dassler, which I found out a little later is one of the founding family members of Adidas. And then later in life, I reached out to the general manager of the Oakland Athletics and wanted to talk. And he took my phone call and we talked, and he too said, well, you usually have to come in and work your way up. You're pretty smart. So I've always got, I don't know how it is, but I think it's just being sincere in your communications and talking in the style so they can hear you as opposed to you being you. And damn it, if they don't understand you, that's their problem, if that
Well,
makes sense.
none of that would have happened had you not knocked on the door.
Correct. Well, yeah. I mean that other adage that does hold true is what's the worst they're going to say is no, and even no is at least a toe in the door. You at least communicated through the right pathway. I don't know if I'd have that same level of success today because going back to the blah blah blah. I'm not going to say the years because it'll make me real old, but going back to those days uh, everybody was a little more open. Everybody was a little more approachable. Now, because of just the way the world we live in, I mean, it's something you're dealing with win-win philosophies and the other stuff. We're in a time where it's a lot harder to break through the barriers because people are a lot more hesitant and afraid to let loose. But I'm still finding success, and I think it's just because people can tell. You can tell if somebody's being sincere, and you can tell if somebody truly does want to talk with you, not at you. And knock on wood, I've been very fortunate that that's been my style.
Yeah, I mean, there's a phrase that I heard long ago that the average person can sense insincerity from across a crowded room, and I think that, or at least I would imagine that in the circles that you are in, that you encounter a lot of people who are posing, trying to be something other than themselves, and that probably gets recognized pretty quickly, I would guess. What would you say
Yeah,
about
and I think vice versa. I mean, there's people that I would love to have a stronger relationship with, and I won't name names because I would like to, that they themselves haven't quite figured out. They're in constant sales mode, or they're in constant I'm important and you're not mode. And I'm constantly recognizing, boy, if we could get together, we could do amazing things. But I've just got to be patient and I've just got to wait. And eventually that wall will come down. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. It's just, not everybody's perfect for everybody. But as again, thank you, you alluded to, I have been fortunate to reach out to billionaires and others. And I mean, I even got a what they call a butt dial from somebody who had just donated $300 million to an organization, and I was high enough on their phone list that they accidentally dialed me. So it's like, and I took it all in stride and smiled and laughed and called back and said, "Hey, I don't know if you know it, but I know secrets about you now that nobody else does." But just the fact of those communication, and the other thing is some of the times you go into look, I'll do fundraising as an example. Uh, they tell you and teach you make sure you go in with what you're looking for in mind. And when you're having that conversation, make sure before you leave, you let them know ideally what you're looking for, etc. And although there are times when that works, I've always felt, no, your intent and purpose of that conversation is to establish a relationship. And if it takes you 5 phone calls before you say, hey, I've got a favor to ask and something you could really help. And or if it never happens and it's better that somebody else do the ask because your style just isn't working, that's a lot better than creating an atmosphere that every time you call, they're going to go, oh my God, what does he want? Because last time he called, he wanted something. And but I think the nicest compliment, there used to be a theme park in Northern California. Theme park's still there, but now it's a Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. It used to be called Marine World Africa USA, and folks from Southern California might remember that Marine World closed years and years ago, and a lot of the animals were taken up north to what was Marine World Africa USA. And we were building a shark experience where you could go through and actually ride on a walkway through a tank where the sharks would swim around above you. And the nicest compliment I ever had was there was a gentleman who helped with all of the signage and all of the displays and exhibits, and he was being interviewed by a reporter when we were nearing completion of the project. And I was in the background, and he said, so what was it like working with Mr. Johnson, the gentleman who was in charge of the project and designing? And he goes, well, honestly, it felt like I was getting every teeth in my mouth pulled out of my mouth. And then he followed up with, and I never enjoyed it more. And then he went on to explain that Mr. Johnson had high expectations, but he had high expectations for us, not just for me. So he was willing to work as hard as I was willing to work. And he also was understanding that I'm a business and needed to make a living. But he said, I had so much fun on this project, and boy, the expectations were high for both of us. And that's probably the nicest compliment. How many people say, yeah, he pulled out all my teeth, but I enjoyed every minute of it. That's and I reached out to him about a year ago for something else, and he remembered it, wanted to help, different line of business, so it didn't work out that he's in now. But it's like people remember you if you've been good to them and the relationship was a positive one, they will remember you. And I think that's a nice compliment, something I need to remember, because when you go through life and you move a lot, and you change a lot and everything else, you kind of go, ah, man, I got to stabilize myself. But then you realize, no, I've got a pretty good Rolodex of folks that I could call up just to talk to. And I think that's something we all need to remember.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've discovered in my 2 or 3 years out there in the world is that people never forget the help they get when they're down.
No, you're right.
They never forget, they're appreciative forever.
Yeah.
So one of the things that, I've seen you do over time is that you're really good at supporting people who want to grow and learn and such. And because you have such a breadth and depth of experience,
it's because I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, Scott.
well, it seems to be working for you. That seems to be working for you. Maybe that's something that you should just allow to be, right? Because
Right.
it's a long time back when I created a spiritual program, the essence of the program is what works for you works for you.
There you go. Good. Profound. There's a bumper sticker in there somewhere.
So anyway, it's been interesting about how we take our various talents and how they gain expression or don't gain expression in the world out there. And one of the things that I've always subscribed to, and you alluded to, is that being ourself, there's no guarantee that being ourself is going to work, but there's 100% guarantee that not being ourself won't work. So our best chance is just to be us, right? And I've kind of adopted that, at first unconsciously, but later consciously, and having, as I've grown, my understanding of what it means to be me has changed. Has your self-image changed over time?
Oh, I would definitely say yes. I think there's parts of me and who I am well, good example. I've got a very prominent high school reunion coming up this year. And I might as well admit it. My 50th high
Oh,
school
I was going to
reunion
guess
is coming up this.
75th, but I was
Yeah,
sorry. I
yeah, thanks.
apologize for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, no, but my 50th reunion, and of course, when I moved back to Northern California, they reached out and asked if I'd be willing to help. But you hear things from people in high school, you don't pay attention, but you go, and I haven't seen some of these people 45 years, 40 years. And they said, "Oh, we always remember you. We could always go to you and you'd take time for us, or we'd always go to you." And, they weren't a popular person, but you'd always take time to hang out and talk. And it's like, I didn't think of myself that way back then. But that's one characteristic I'm glad I had back then and I still have today. But a lot of, I think we all possess, and I think you've said this before, I think we all possess the skill sets that we might have now as adults, but we never used or learned how to utilize them for the benefit of ourselves or others until the opportunities came where you had to, you know, tax yourself to be able to bring that to the surface. And so I don't know, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know if that's something in the brain or something in the spirit or whatever. But there are times when I think, wow, I've never done that before. And that worked out real well. And I go, why haven't I done that before? Well, that opportunity never presented itself. So I think I'm constantly learning. I think I'm constantly evolving. I know there's a couple things. I've always been creative. So I mean, I got paid to be an artist back when I was a sophomore in high school. So, I've always made a living being creative to a certain extent. And I was, senior class vice president. So obviously I've been full of baloney for a long time as well. But if that's the phrase you say anymore, I don't know what the current phrase is. Well, I know what it is, but I shouldn't say it because it's got two letters, I think, beginning with a B. But the reality is, I think we learn over time to reach a little deeper into who we are and bring things forward that probably have been sitting there for a while, waiting for you to utilize them. And to me, I think that is, yeah, I'm constantly evolving, but I think this is sounding weird and probably too deep. But I think it's things we've always had with us, but have never been taxed or tasked to use them. I don't know if that makes sense.
Perfect sense. I mean, so my question is that um, are there traits and qualities that you have that you want to further develop, or do you just trust the world to bring you the right challenges at the right time for you to accept and utilize and develop your innate talents?
I think it's both, unfortunately or fortunately. I think I won't know what I will get tasked with tomorrow. Whether it's somebody I'm working with that's difficult, and now I have to learn how to adapt to try to win them over. Or is it, yes, I've had skills that I've utilized forever. My family keeps wanting me to get back into drawing and painting and photography and things that I've been good at my entire life, but haven't been practicing much lately because now I'm a CEO, so I have to play CEO, so I don't get to use my creative talents as much. But they know that I'm a more relaxed, happy Chris when I've drawn a cartoon or when I've painted a picture or when I've taken a photograph and then just really liked how it turned out. To me, you may look at it and go, yeah, I've seen that about 10 million times, but if I like it, that's what's important. So yeah, I think there are skill sets uh, that I should do more of because those things will put my frame of mind and my life at peace a little better so that things are balanced. Do I do it as well as I should? No, I do not practice what I preach as well as I should. And actually, it's funny. This week I've said that to about three people where we've been talking, and I've said, "Here's what you should do," and they go, "Yeah, you're right, I will." And I said, "Yeah, but I need to practice what I preach because I need to do it as well." So I don't
I
know
think
if I
that's
answered
all
your
of it.
question.
It's so much easier to give advice than to follow our own advice.
That's true. That's true. Well, because we know who's giving the advice, and if it's us,
No, I don't think it's that we doubt I don't think it's that we doubt the value of the advice. I think that the um, obstacles to carrying it out are not evident to us, right? Because if we know the details of an obstacle, we can address it. But if we haven't really nailed down the details of an obstacle, then can't really do much about it other than like continuing to run into the brick wall in hopes that one day we'll knock it down.
no, true that. True that. Yeah, and I was asked the question, and I never have the answer to it. But I've had some people tell me, "Well, how come you aren't making millions?" And like the question you asked me earlier, why are you getting drawn to nonprofit work as opposed to for-profit work? And I don't have the answer. It's just my brain. This is going to sound stupid. We all need money to survive, but my motivation isn't money. And yet I do like fine things. Like, I think I've seen just about every movie that's ever been put in a movie theater, and I love movies. But we all are different, and we need to respect some people are in this world for their ideas. Some people are in this world for their companionship. Other people are in this world to make a lot of money, and we all need to figure out how to work together so that we can maximize the benefit of all.
Well, I think that you do a lot of that in the respect that, as a CEO, you're dealing with employees and their careers and lives and families, and as a fundraiser, you're dealing with philanthropists and that whole segment of the world and perspective, and as a provider of homes, you're working with contractors and government and agencies of all various types, state and federal and local. I mean, so you really do bring, this diverse group together to make it happen.
Yeah, but I also, some of those people have a museum with their car collection in it. Others, you walk through their house and you look at one painting and realize it's worth over $1 million. You walk into my house, you won't see that on the walls. You will not see that in the garage. And that's just not, you know, and I'm probably lying. I wouldn't mind a Norman Rockwell in my house because he's my favorite illustrator artist. But uh, I think it's different strokes.
Yeah, but I mean, let's face it, Howard Hughes was a great example of the fact that, money doesn't necessarily buy happiness.
That, in fact, most people that preach that also say, it won't buy happiness. Happiness is a trait that can't be purchased. Can money buy you things? Absolutely. But I'm forgetting who I heard it from just today. If you're depressed, I can throw as much money at you and you're just going to get more depressed because that money's going to bring things forward. If you're physically ill, you can throw money at trying to fix it, but it's not going to cure you. The doctors and the medicine's going to cure you. So it's, yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
And I mean, that's one of the things that I think is a struggle in our society is the um, thought that things that will bring you money or recognition or following or political power will result in you being happy and fulfilled. And just isn't necessarily the case. I mean, it's probably a piece of that, but it's not the whole story by any means, and as somebody that encounters as part of their work the mental health of people, I'm sure you've had to deal with that a great amount in serving the veterans, in that they've got all kinds of, in some cases at least, trauma from their service. And it's
Yeah,
like,
actually,
and
the
how do you, there's a strong mental health component to the services you provide, and how is all of that integrated with this?
well, and yeah, over 68% of the folks we serve, and we serve over 7,000 veterans a year, over 68% of them have some form of a challenge with mental health. It's either post-traumatic stress syndrome, it could be something brought on by addiction, drug or alcohol. But again, the best thing, I've enjoyed meeting every single one of them because all of them have a story. All of them just want to be listened to. All of them are people that have done. I'm very passionate about the fact that these are people that are have earned the support we give them. They're not just deserving of it; they are, but they've earned it. Yeah, the mental health is an interesting dynamic because I am not a clinician. And so I know my job is not, nor should it be, to cure somebody or to have somebody have a breakthrough when they're around me. But like you alluded to, whether it was here, whether it was with mending kids and going to Mozambique, whether it was Red Cross and being on the ground in Katrina, or any of the other challenges in some of the jobs I've had, all of the people exhibited the same, those that have been traumatized exhibited the same trait, which is just, I just want somebody to be there. And I just want somebody to listen when I'm talking and to shut up when I'm not, and to just be there. And I feel, actually, we were talking about money and everything else. I think that's probably the best thing I've ever gotten out of my career is, yeah, yes, I've met a lot of very important people, but the most important people I've met are the people that I've been able to meet during their trauma, and then be there for that, and then see them years later and realize what an amazing person that individual was, that I was able to be there at the right time.
So how involved, if at all, are you in selecting the mental health support that the veterans receive? Is that a delegated decision in your world, or is that something where you're a little bit more hands-on? Where does that stand?
As I said, I'm not a clinician, and I am a firm believer that they're out in most everything that we do, there's somebody smarter than I am. And so the reality is I've surrounded myself my job was to surround myself with the smartest people I could, the most compassionate people I could, the people that are experts in the field, and to listen to them and support what they feel is the best thing to do moving forward. My best contribution is that I play devil's advocate. So I try to think up worst case, best case, all the different scenarios so that I can challenge their thinking, so that in turn, their knowledge, their skill set will rise to the top. And everywhere I have worked, I have been fortunate to be surrounded by people that are, like I described, a lot better at what they're doing than I am. And because of that, we've had tremendous results. And that's probably resulted in one of the first comments you said about me, is why I've been successful of finding CEO roles, is I have been blessed with quality people around me and finding traits and finding the inner people during interview processes that are going to be ideal for that job they've applied for. And so maybe that's a skill set that I should brag more about. And that's probably what's made me successful, is being able to recognize talent and maximize the benefit of that talent.
Yeah, and that's not all that common because, what I've seen is that even at the CEO level, there are some CEOs who are insecure and are threatened by people who are better in some areas than they are, and they don't want to have those people around to their and other people's detriment. So it's not a universal thing that people have the inner security of who they are to not feel threatened by surrounding themselves with people who are better than they are, at least in specific areas. It's a
No, and I believe in it. My only thing I hope and pray for and actually manage toward is that those people don't get arrogant, because the challenges I've had historically with some people have been that with their intelligence and success comes a little bit of an arrogance, and then they're not fun to work with, because instead of enjoying the dialogue to come up with the best solution, they know everything. And nobody knows everything. We've talked about that already. And so I love surrounding myself. In fact, I have no problem paying somebody more than I make as a CEO if they're going to bring that value to the organization. I've worked several places where I was the CEO and I paid my development professionals, my fundraisers more than I got. Why? Because they were bringing in more resources that were critically needed for us to get the job done. So, that's fine and very easily supported, but
yeah,
unusual.
and exactly very unusual, you know. And I think probably is one of the things that speaks to the reasons for the success you've enjoyed as well.
Well,
So
thank
going
you.
forward, is it a case of if it isn't broken, don't fix it? You're going to just continue along as you have been?
Well, I think yes. I'm constantly discovering, and people like yourself are great at giving me feedback on things where I could improve. And I'm constantly listening. Am I sometimes stubborn? Absolutely. Sometimes there used to be an advertising campaign for a shaving product way back in the day. And they came up with a solution that once you see something 7 times, you finally see it. And I fall into that category. If somebody says something brilliant to me, it might not be the first time that I take it and apply it. So I think I'm going to be a constant learner. I think my skill sets are what they are, and hopefully I expose a few more in my career as I move forward. I am prone to taking on new challenges, and I am one of those that isn't happy if things are just flowing perfect. I like to constantly be growing and improving, and that goes for the organizations I work for, and that's why I've been blessed to have success and diversity in the jobs I've had. I mean, like you described, I ran an ad agency and then also ran an organization providing life-saving care to children all over the world. I mean, how many people were one of the first on the ground for 9/11 and one of the first on the ground for Hurricane Katrina? We ran an organization that provided extracurricular activities for some of the most at-risk kids in the city of LA. And I got to swim with killer whales. So,
And
what
live
a,
to talk about it.
and lived to talk about, oh, they were great. It was a very controlled situation. I don't want to make it sound like I'm brave, but I've been very, very, very blessed with my life, and I look forward to the years I've got left before I retire. And I don't know if I'll ever retire. I had somebody tell me once, well, when you retire, you actually just put a hyphen between the RE and the tire, because people like me will never just stop and sit. They're constantly going to be getting tired, but it'll be something different.
So before we end, is there anything that you would like people to know about you that you haven't shared, or are we pretty complete?
Well, we haven't talked. Next week I will be celebrating my 40th wedding anniversary, so I deserve some sort of award for stability there.
Absolutely.
I'm actually, let's rephrase that. Laura, my wife, deserves some sort of award for tolerance. That's probably better. I have a brilliant 35-year-old son and a recently doctored daughter who got her doctorate in, of all things, epidemiology, which is like holy smokes. And she's already been cited over 80 times in prestigious medical publications, etc. So I'm pretty blessed. I've had some pretty good, that's stuff we didn't talk about. Love the sport of tennis. Hate playing Scott Friedman at tennis because he beats me every time. But yeah, that's it. Love movies, and I just love talking to people. And if I can help people, I enjoy being the one to do that.
Well, thank you, Chris. And if you want to contact Chris, because Nation's Finest has a lot of volunteers as part of what they do. And if you're interested in participating with the Nation's Finest organization, you can contact them as a volunteer or as a philanthropist or as a person with a brilliant idea of how to better support veterans. And I'm sure he would be, or his organization would be very happy to receive input on any of those. For me, I'm a thought coach in addition to other things. And you can find me at www.thoughtcoachingbyscott.com. And my books are available on Amazon if you have an interest in that. And I guess without further ado, we hope you've enjoyed this. I'm sure, I know I have. And we will meet next time.